Stands in the yard. From customer joy to compliance so bright, we'll analyze it all, shining a light. Edge, or where do you stand? A, B, or C, let's lend a hand. Assessing the good, the bad, and the new. A protects you to guide you through. Partner presentations, let's take a peek. Are you hitting the mark or feeling meek? Tips and tricks will surely impart, elevating your game, a work of art. Edge, or where do you stand? A, B, or C, let's lend a hand. Assessing the good, the bad, and the new. A protects you to guide you through. Compliance is key, a vital decree. Visas watching, can you see? Navigating the rules, we'll show you how. Ensuring your business has no wow. Edge, or where do you stand? A, B, or C, let's lend a hand. Assessing the good, the bad, and the new. They protect you to guide you through. So tune in today at 4:15 ET. The Edge report card, can't miss you see. Questions and answers will pave the way to Edge success. Hip, hip, hooray.
It's time for the Edge report card, rating how it stands in the yard. From customer joy to compliance so bright, we'll analyze it all, shining a light. Edge, oh where do you stand? A, B, or C, let's lend a hand. Assessing the good, the bad, and the new. Pay protects here to guide you through. Partner presentations, let's take a peek. Are you hitting the mark or feeling meek? Tips and tricks will surely impart, elevating your game, a work of art. Edge, oh where do you stand? A, B, or C, let's lend a hand. Assessing the good, the bad, and the new. Pay protects here to guide you through. Compliance is key, a vital decree. Visas watching, can you see? Navigating the rules, we'll show you how. Ensuring your business has no wow. Edge, oh where do you stand? A, B, or C, let's lend a hand. Assessing the good, the bad, and the new. Pay protects here to guide you through. So tune in today at 4:15 ET. The Edge report card, can't miss you see. Questions and answers will pave the way to Edge success. Hip, hip, hooray.
Buddy, how is everybody out there in PayProtect Nation? I am here in Indianapolis, Indiana, and on the other coast, but halfway across the United States, up in the Rocky Mountains in Glenwood Springs, Colorado, is Mr. Danny Schard. Danny, how are you today? And what'd you think of the Udio? I don't want to take any credit other than knowing how to use AI. What'd you think of our new 2 theme songs coming in for our Edge report card?
You know, I don't want to sway the judgment too much. We'll let the people decide. Please put your votes in the comment section. Definitely unique though to hear our name and what we're doing here on a song. So I'll leave it at that.
There you go. All right. Hey, we're here to have a serious discussion, but I thought we'd start out with a little bit of fun. And I get tired of doing just the same old, music out there. So we want to do something unique. But we're here to talk about Edge Report Card. And I always like to start these out a little bit by getting a little of our history of how we got here. And we've been doing this for, I should always look this up. I think we just crossed over. It was May of 2016 or 17? 17. Yeah. So we just crossed over 7 years of doing this in various formations. Danny, can you kind of walk us through for Paprotech how this journey has been as we've been using Edge, not always calling it Edge. It does, changing vocabulary and vernacular all the time, but walk us through a little bit of the history.
Yeah, I mean, we should actually have like a timeline of events so we can go through it, because it's changed so much and it continues to evolve, right? I think we're kind of near the end of the evolution of, what was cash discounting now to where it stands today. It's much more defined. But when we started, it was kind of by the seat of our pants. We leveraged surcharging and said, we're going to base it on this, but it's not this. And so, we'd add line items on receipts. We'd send out signs that say 4% applies to all card transactions and a discount applies to cash transactions. And we were always talking about gray areas, right? There's a lot of gray areas with this program, which was accurate, right? At that time, there was not that had been defined by the card brands and what we could and what we couldn't do. And so we were just really accessing a loophole, and it was very successful. As the program kind of evolved and we started getting a lot more popularity behind it, that's whenever we actually named the program, not my favorite name, but Saltsha Prime. If you guys have been with us long enough to remember that name, Saltsha Prime was, I think, was our first brand of cash discount, if I'm correct, right, Nate?
It was. That was the first one. And I will, full disclosure on the name, I did not come up with the name Saltsha. I do believe I was in the process of coming up with calling it Prime. I don't remember who got credit, but I was definitely in the room, and I still like the Prime name because it actually was right. But I understand. Back to you. But yes, Saltsha Prime was our first rollout of our cash discount or any other type of program.
And it was right when Amazon Prime was kind of taking off, so that it kind of had a thing with it. But then as it progressed, and then our other organizations really started adopting it, and our fearless leader, Matt Hoskins, stepped in, and even though he stood behind the Saltsha brand for as long as he could hold on to it, he went ahead and updated the entire name to Edge, which I loved. And it had a better ring to it than Saltsha Prime, and it was a lot easier for us to explain. I know a lot of us here internally at Paprotech were excited we didn't have to say the word Saltsha Prime anymore, just for how long it took us to say the words. So there was that. But and then at that time though, whenever it evolved into Edge, it really didn't change the way we were doing it. Other than at that point, I think was when we dropped the line item on the receipt. So we were always having our point of sale vendors and everybody we were trying to get into this mix of how we're doing it here. And it was a discount being applied to cash transactions. But then we could really only do that in point of sale systems, terminals, and even at the time, Pay Anywhere. We were very still just adding a fee at the point of sale, but it just was not having a separate line item. Now, kind of fast forward to where we are today, and we've really got dual pricing down pat. And that's what the card brands want to see. So they've now announced to everybody that it's, you're either dual pricing or you're surcharging. And surcharging is now capped at 3%, or you're showing a list or a markup to all transactions, all tender types. So you can do that as well. Which I've heard of some of our competitors that are doing the latter. Not a fan of the experience that kind of brings in, but I do think it's a little bit easier to implement if you can sell a merchant on, hey, just increase all of your prices 4% on everything so we can charge you more. I think that's the tough sell in my opinion. But now all of our systems, other than a basic countertop terminal like a Desk 3500, but Deja Vu, Valor, pay anywhere solutions, all the PAX devices, and each one of our point of sale systems now has dual pricing built into it. Now that's just for the merchant and the customer experience, right? For them to see the dual pricing listed on the receipts or listed on the screen that they're paying on, that's great. But now Visa takes it a step further, and they want that defined on your menus, defined on your shelves. So what the customer sees is what they pay. So we've really come a long way from where we started this program and where we are today. But I like it a lot more because we're no longer hiding behind, in the shadows of saying there's gray areas here or there. It's much more defined. We know where we stand. We know what we have to do. And we know the program that we're putting out is fully compliant and all of our partners and merchants are protected.
And we've been at the cutting edge, trying to be at the level of being the advocate for the merchant, being the champion for the partner, helping make sure that we're providing the margin that we all need to make this a livable industry, because the race to zero was going on in 2017. And eventually there's no more profit to give away when you just keep giving it all away. And so this created that margin, that opportunity. And today, Danny's going to walk us through, and it's back to school time. A lot of our kids are back to school. I know mine are already well into their second full week. But we're going to give some letter grades, some A's, some B's, some C's, hopefully not any D's and F's, where we are looking at where are we in 4 different areas. Partner presentations. And we're going to talk about customer experience. We're going to talk about compliance, and then we're going to talk about where we are as a whole industry. And we'll start probably some more conversation. And at the end, I'm going to be looking over here in chat and trying to find any questions that you may have, and we'll bring them here and let our guru Danny bring the answer, or say, hey, we don't know, and we'll come back to you. So our goal is to do that. So let's start with the first thing, partner presentations. And really, I mean that the proposal, the sales process. I didn't know how we put it, but how are partners standing in front of merchants, the thousands of PayProTech partners that are out here across the United States? Where are they? How would you evaluate how they present what is now the modern Edge program? And are they doing it well? Are they doing it honestly, transparently? What are the caveats? Some are, and then we'll talk about a letter grade after this. But how do you evaluate how our partners are presenting this Edge program, and what are some of the ups and downs, Danny?
Yeah, it's. I would say that it's getting better, a lot quicker than I expected. We still do have a good group of partners that have been selling this program for a long time. They know what's easily going to trigger a merchant to jump into the program, right? So taking the mentality of if it ain't broke, don't fix it kind of thing. But, I do think that there's some opportunities for some to no longer cut some corners and really kind of dive into the overall sale and explaining how this works. So right now, I think the majority of our partners are really doing a good job at educating merchants, because that's really what now is. Now is the time to educate merchants, make sure they're aware of what's out there, right? The card brands, Visa more specifically, is sending secret shoppers out nonstop. So all of us need to make sure our merchants know what they're doing, know the program, how it works, and how to explain it. And that way their employees or themselves don't do anything that they shouldn't, or set up their own signage, or do anything in their business that can basically compromise them if they were to get contacted by one of the card brands. So I think it's getting a lot better. We're not hearing of near as many merchant complaints or compliance violations, even though it happens from time to time. It's still extremely rare, which just tells me that we're doing things right, explaining to our merchants correctly for the most part. As far as a grade, Nate, or do you want me to just kind of go through what we're doing now?
Oh, well, let's do a grade. So where we are partners from an A to an F, A being all of our partners are doing it perfectly, and then grade it down, 90, 80, 70 as you saw. Where are we today, where our partners are?
I would say we're probably right at a B. B is, I think, is a pretty fair grade. It's, and granted, a few bad apples ruin it for a lot of the good ones, right? So all of us are in that gamut. But a lot of you are doing it very well. Again, I think so many merchants have been sold this program, and by us even as well, right? Since we didn't know, and as this program has evolved, they're currently doing it incorrectly, right? So I think it's important to now, this is an opportunity for us to go out and get more business from merchants that are not doing it properly. And it's not about, giving sales or scare tactics to them and telling them, you're going to get fined and this and that. And I just don't think that brings, a lot of confidence from the merchant. But explaining to them what the card brands are looking at, what we've seen them kind of go after and target, and what the merchant, just a few simple changes that a merchant can do, can get them up to speed, so they're not looking over their shoulder. They're not going to have to be concerned with things like this. So there's just an opportunity for us that's massive to overtake some current merchants set up on a program that's just really not compliant, but doing it in a way that the merchant builds confidence in you and trust in you, so you can really educate them properly, get them a better solution, get them a better process completely, and still make the same money, if not more. I'm seeing a lot of partners going in and immediately think we've got to drop the rate, and that's not the answer. And I think you're kind of cheating all of us by immediately dropping the rate. I know we've got to get competitive, so don't get me wrong, but I do think there's opportunities to add value to what the merchants are currently doing today without taking all of your revenue out of it.
I like it. I mean, I think that what's become important on this is that really our partners are listening to you and our team as we give you the best information we have. We're always going to let you know what we're seeing in the industry. Yep. Our money, it only happens when you guys make money. And so we're in this together, and we're going to make sure you're there. And this is the area, the one I think of the threes where we've made the least improvement, because we had the least improvement to give, other than we would say. But as we've learned things, our partners have presented really well how this program works, told it to the merchants. But how would you say specifically about customer experience, that this is where we've had the biggest change? Because when we started out, we had no equipment that could do anything. And now we have nearly all of our equipment are doing proper dual pricing. Danny, where are we in the customer experience? How would you evaluate, before we talk letter grade, how would you evaluate where we are with our customer experience for dual pricing for Edge programs?
So good, and so much better than we were even 6-12 months ago, right? The solutions that we've got, the technology partners that we're with Deja Vu, with Valor, obviously our PAX lineup with Pay Anywhere, all of these kind of base model solutions that we've always really done a ton of have been fantastic, with providing that customer with a positive experience at checkout that's really transparent. Now, that's just one part of it, right? Now, that experience is going to be leveraged on what they saw on that menu, or what they saw on the shelf, right? That's the most important part. That's what's going to help them understand, okay, this is why I'm seeing this on the screen. When it's just shown to them on the screen and they're seeing something different, that's what the card brands are really going after. So even if we've got dual pricing solutions that improve that customer experience at the point of checkout, that's not making it compliant. What's making it compliant is the pricing they're seeing on the menu, is the pricing on that shelf. But having that dual pricing solution is massive, because I think, of course, the card brands are not going to be able to police everybody, but as consumers get more educated, we've heard of consumers turning in merchants just like secret shoppers do. So that customer experience goes a long way in ensuring that minimizes or doesn't happen if we're seeing the consistency on the menu and the shelves, and as well at the point of checkout. If they don't have that at the checkout, that's okay. But I do think it just adds an amazing experience to the customer and minimizes any kind of friction or anything whenever it's just black and white right in front of you. So our solutions have come a long way. Thankful to a lot of our partners. We can't forget them. And, we wanted to have the most solutions available. So you had the buffet of options of what you're comfortable with, right? Whether you're comfortable with Valor or Deja Vu. Obviously, our Pay Anywhere product is one of the more popular options when you're looking at solutions like this. And then all of our POS providers have followed suit, and they've got cash discount built in, dual pricing built in, depending on how the merchant wants to present it. And so it's really come a long way, and those presentations are key.
All right. So where are we now? Let's do where we were 2 years ago and where we are now. So 2 years ago, what letter grade would you have given us for the customer experience for Edge and dual pricing?
D.
Ooh, we don't want it D, but that's where we were.
Yeah. Well, and in all honesty, that's what we had as an option, right? Yep. And really the only reason one is an F, because all of our point of sale providers really backed us up, and they had the dual pricing or cash discounting built in on the receipts. But, when such a majority of our solutions, were Pay Anywhere, Deja Vu, Valor, or some of our other POS systems that had not quite been able to catch up, that customer experience was just not there. Having the customer facing screens with the card price and the cash price listed on it, it just wasn't there. And so that entire customer experience was incredibly lacking. And all that was happening was an amount was being added to the base and not put on the receipt. And so you'd put in $10 and $10.40 was now on the receipt. But there was a big question mark, like, where'd that come from, right? And of course, there's a sign that might say this, but unless the merchant has dual pricing built in, which, let's be honest, 2 years ago, less than 2% of merchants did. I think that really put a big question mark on the customer experience. Now, where we are today, I'd have to say I'm going to go A-. I mean, we're right there. Of course, I think we can improve to get to an A+. It's been cool to see how much our partners have helped us really expand and ensure we're providing the best experience. Our partners are providing the best experience for their customers, for their merchants and their customers, right? And it's by just getting the best solutions that you can in their hands. So I do think that there might be a little bit of room to improve. I hope we had an A- there, because hopefully eventually we can move it up to an A+. Because I don't know how much better it can get. I'm sure it can be. But it's, I think we've come a long way from where we were. And the options that we have, all of them having the ability to do dual pricing, show it on the screens, that make it available for all merchants. It's just something we haven't had. So we gotta bump up that grade quite a bit.
Well, I think, and I it's the technical director. That would be my fault for not having the graphic that does A-. So we'll go with the A and celebrate that. But I think we're making improvement. There's always room for improvement because sometimes the goalposts are moving a lot of times. And that really ties us into our third one, the things we're not in control of. We can control our own proposal. We can help our merchants and the customer experience. And as we have the capabilities, we're not fully under control, but we can present things. But when it comes to compliance, this is not in our control. These are third parties out there that are making the decisions for us. Danny, can you let's start before we get a letter grade on this. Give us a little where we are with compliance, who the big players are when it comes to compliance in the edge and cash discounting and surcharging and dual pricing discussions. Give us a little, where we are in this world of compliance.
Yeah, I mean, it's a battle every day that I think, we're all trying to stay in front of and know what to expect. But, I think, some advocates in our industry and then going to some of these shows. And if you haven't been to a regional show, I encourage you to go. If you have, you've probably gotten to hang out with us, which is a heck of a good time. But if you have a chance to go to a regional show or even view some of the information they end up putting online that you can view in video format, it's very, very educational on what the card brands, where they stand. And it's so defined. Like now we really shouldn't have a lot of questions necessarily. We should just more be focusing on what we can do to help these merchants implement it easily, right? Because if they're not, we can only do so much as far as educating without making it sound like, it's going to be so difficult to implement this program. That's the thing where when we started out with cash discounts, very easy to sell, right? Plug in this terminal, it's going to eliminate your fees. Great. And I'm afraid of some of you are probably still doing that, but I won't name any names, but you know who you are. And I know that was easy to sell. I just don't think that's the right way to sell in today's market with everything we're seeing going on right now with compliance and how the card brands are really going after merchants that aren't doing it right. So there's a way that I'm seeing this kind of shift with some of these partners really changing that model and changing that approach, and I love to see that. But I think for the most part, compliance is really going to constantly be something that we're going to keep an eye on and kind of keep abreast with what they're pushing out and what we're seeing that's impacting merchants. Right now, we're really seeing the big thing that's causing merchants to get a violation letter or a warning of any kind, and that's putting up their own signage that says a percentage is added to a card or anything like that, right? That's what they're looking for. So if you don't have transparent pricing and you're making your own signs, or you're just adding fees to the transaction without having dual pricing listed or anything like that, they're going to catch it. They're going to catch it. So be aware, help your merchants get in front of it. We've only had, guys, about a dozen violations, to merchants. In the grand scheme of things, that's a pinprick, right, with how many cash discount merchants that we have. But enough to actually, so we understand the process. We know what's going to happen, and whenever it initiated, what we can do to help our partners. And now let's be honest, compliance has aligned a toe on our side with the card brands. So they're not going to be the biggest help necessarily to kind of hold our hand through the process, but they're going to get us what we need so we can answer the questions. So something that we're really trying to do is make sure that partners are notified if their merchants were to be contacted by compliance for anything. We all know these business owners are, running their own businesses for the most part. And I think it's they're not always able to check their emails, where we're in front of those every day. So we're trying to do things to keep you guys informed, to keep you abreast if your merchants are contacted, and improve the overall experience if compliance ever steps in. But hopefully that's not the case, and we stay off their radar entirely.
Yeah. All right. So, and a lot of things go into the compliance. I always say what we're learning right now, it's not always simple, but there are really 3 things that you just highlighted to do. Don't mess around with signage. If you're going to do signage, it's going to be, I'm going to raise my rates 4% for everything, all tenders. So just no signage. Always make sure you have the highest price that's listed. Best case scenario, let's go dual price, list both prices. That's where we want to be. And number 3, this is an old one, but we still have a few of you out there that are to try to do it, and especially in our industry as a whole, just you don't need to show a fee on the receipt, because that has gone by. That was so 1999 or 2019, whichever we want to call it. But it's been gone for a long time, and there's still a few of you holding on to that in merchants. All right, so now we have to ask ourselves, what kind of grade do we give ourselves? So I'm going to ask this a couple different ways. How our merchants are compliant, because sometimes I think that our merchants are going against the recommendations of our partners, and then how our partners are compliant, how often our partners are actually giving the most compliant advice they can. So let's start with merchant and then go to partner. Where do you think we are, Danny?
So I'm going to say merchants are at a C right now. And that's, the reason I have to, right.
Yeah, sorry. Give a man a soundboard. He just plays with it too much. There we go. All right, go ahead. I've
got to go with a C just as I look at the overall timeline of doing the program that we've got. We've got a lot of merchants that have been set up for years doing this. And I know that it's very challenging for any of you in sales out there to go and reach out to every merchant to get them to change what they're doing today. Unfortunately, they're going to now be open to a competitor who might educate them, just like I'm telling you guys, right? Go into these merchants who are doing it wrong and educate them. Now, hopefully you've got a good relationship with your merchants where they'll call you before doing anything, but there's just still a lot of merchants that are just have our old pricing or our old signage, which did say, items have 2 prices, pay with cash and save. Unfortunately, that's just not enough anymore from what the card brands want to see to be compliant, right? So I think it's something that you're always going to hear me say, if you have the opportunity to talk to your merchants, especially your higher volume, more processing, more earning merchants, right? To make sure that they're educated and they know what to expect and know what they should be doing to kind of transition the way they're doing it so they can continue to eliminate their fees or as much of their fees as they'd like, and make sure they're doing it in a compliant way. So I've got to go with C, not necessarily for new merchants and new boardings, but for the masses that we've got that I think have just been set up over the years. And this is a fairly new concept within the last 12 months of the card brands really kind of putting their foot down and defining this for us. So gives us an opportunity to talk to merchants, but also kind of know where we came from, and we've still got some of that history with us.
All right, let's jump into our partners. You mentioned it earlier. Some of our partners are proactive and reaching out to their whole portfolio. Some are choosing which ones they reach out to. Obviously, some are not presenting it even to new people in a way that is clear and transparent. Where are we when it comes to compliance for our partners? What grade would you give them?
Yeah, I'm going to say a B. I think we're doing really well, and like I said before, a few bad apples kind of tear that down a little bit. But our team here at PaperTech has done a really good job at making sure partners are educated and kind of know. We've got videos on the topics. Mike and Jenny do great trainings for all new partners and existing partners if you want to catch up on updates for dual pricing or anything like that. They do excellent content on how to make sure you're doing it properly and educating merchants and things like that. And I think that's come a long way with helping us make sure our partners are explaining it properly, or at least doing what we can from our side to make sure you're educated and position the program how you want to position it, because you're going to sell how you want to sell. We can only encourage you to do it a certain way, and what we feel is going to be the most popular, compliant, and the best for the overall growth and sustaining your portfolio. But you're gonna find what works for you. I do think that that B could be a lot better if we had some of our old school partners, stop cutting some corners. But you can't teach some of these old dogs new tricks, and we'll just have to continue to work around it if anything comes out of it.
And I'll throw this in here. If you're a partner and you're trying to figure out, how do I reach out to, I've got 3,000 merchants that I want to reach out to and make sure they understand the information, make sure they're most up to date. Talk to us. We'll help you. We just helped a partner. We're putting some emails together. We're always trying to do it any way to make it easier for you. And if you reach out and say, hey, I would like to send out a mass email, we'll help you figure that out and help you be able to say, okay, these are the merchants. This is how we'll communicate. We're here to help you any way we can. Now, last topic as we go through and give our report card an edge. We're a part of a much larger community, and PaperTech is just one of thousands of people and organizations that are selling. Most are selling through majority inside sales teams and a minority outside sales teams. PaperTech, we're unique. We're selling only through outside sales, through you, our partners who are working with us to take the message of PaperTech to your merchants, and they are your merchants. But then, Danny, I want to take where do you see the industry as a whole? Where are we? How are we unifying our message? Where are things separate? How are things changing? Where are we as an industry as a whole when communicating, talking about, and walking the walk when it comes to edge and dual pricing?
Oh man, it's a C minus at best. D plus probably is more appropriate. It's the Wild West out there. It really is. And you've got how many ISOs, no-name ISOs that have not been around for very long, pop up whenever they got, a couple hundred cash discount merchants and, went ahead with a registration and did their thing. And, the reality is that these smaller organizations are just trying to grasp for anything that they can get their hands on and do it any way that they can. I mean, I hear of horror stories out there and still hear of it today of how they were sold, what they were sold on, how it was explained to them. It's awful. But salespeople will continue, the bad salespeople will continue to do anything and say anything that they can to get the business. And what we hope here at PaperTech is that you're, getting some of this content and taking some of this education, and hopefully it's transferring to the way you're selling, and you're selling the right way. Because by selling the right way, it's just you're gonna see the benefit of the growth in your portfolio by doing it like that. The industry as a whole, there's a lot of really good companies out there that are doing it right and that promote doing it right. But I think it's far skewed with how many bad companies out there that are just trying to get sales any way they can. And that's an opportunity for us, but unfortunately it's taken advantage of some merchants, which creates trust issues with people like us, as we all know. So industry's still the Wild West. You don't have to be registered or anything licensed to sell these products. So it's always going to be a good thing for us that we're in this industry, because we'll always be able to compete against companies that do it wrong.
And I would say this, one of the things I notice is we have some people that have some very loud voices, especially when you're talking about social media, some of our groups, and they will speak. This is the only way you can do it. This is, if you're doing this, and what we find is they may be extremely charismatic and extremely committed to saying this is the only way that you can do dual pricing, cash discounting, whatever they choose to talk, differential pricing. They can use all kinds of language. And then we'll find out that yeah, maybe that's how they're setting up their current merchants, but they have 2,000 merchants that are set up how it was set up in 2017. And at the end, what I love about what Danny and his team do is that they provide transparency, the most up-to-date information, and that's all we can do. And we're in this together, and we're not going to hit you over the hammer if we don't know for sure which way things are going to go. We're going to tell you what the reality is. And the reality is what Danny's been presenting this whole time. Danny, as we close out, we're going to take some questions. I only see one, so if you have other questions, get them in the chat now. Obviously, you can always email partners@paprotech.com or your relationship managers to find out your answers to any other questions you may have, especially those who more will watch this afterwards than they're watching it live, but we want to take the live questions here. But Danny, is there anything that you know or hope for the future? What are things that you think will change or make this even better as we evolve and this continues to grow? Is there anything that you're hoping for as we look forward to the future?
Yeah, I mean, I think the easy answer would be for compliance to go away. I don't think that's the right answer, though. I think, as a salesperson, of course, I want what's easiest for us to sell, right? And that's going to make us the most money. But whenever you think of the impact that's doing it the wrong way has, I don't think it's the best thing long term for anybody to just have client compliance or the card brands not policing something, because then it's just chaos all the way around. Things that I'm hopeful to see, yeah, I mean, I think something that we've looked into and that we're really trying to get in front of is how can we help merchants with the process of updating menu boards, updating menus, the shelves, labels, things like that. I think I'd really love to see us doing some things like that. And we're trying to get ahead of that for you guys. So we hope to have some solutions for you that'll kind of go in that direction to kind of walk in with a program in this concept and an answer for everything of no reason why they shouldn't jump into it. That's an ideal world for me. And then, some of the new technology that we continue to see and AI is going to continue to play a big part and get more involved in our industry. So look out. And I think it's going to be really exciting over the next couple of years. I'm just not smart enough to know what to expect. So I don't have anything on my wish list for that right now. But Nate, what do you think? What do you want to see?
Well, I do think when you talk about the technology and the capabilities here, I think we're going to see the ability to be able to totally understand how much that transaction is totally costing. And I think eventually there's going to be some give to the fact that, that's been the issue. They don't want the debit card because it's a lower rate to have the 4% charge. So that's why the surcharge rules. And that was one thing the Congress does. But now we actually have the technology that's fast enough to identify how much is charged in an instant. And we can know that in generally the same amount of transactions. So I think we're going to see some technology changes. I think we're probably 2 or 3 years away from that. But I also think all of our hardware and software are going to be able to provide those. So just like you're saying, we're going to be able to think how many digital menu boards are out there already. And how many Kohl's, those little things that Kohl's, I was reading this recently, they're the ones who use it, but they use those little pricing that they can change across their whole store, and everything's a digital piece of signage. The average cost for all that hardware, now they're buying it at bulk within one store, is under $1,000 for all that hardware in their store. And obviously they have to have the technology to run it, and that's what's going to go down in cost. So we're going to be able to see digital signage go significantly faster into this industry and be adopted and be able to, so it's not just those who have a digital menu board in restaurants, we're going to see that, but even in retail, we're not going to have to print labels quite as often because it's going to be tied to the barcode, and we're going to be able to put it right there at the place where you pick up bread. Here are the 2 prices, and we can do that electronically. We don't have to do that and print out new labels and all the work that takes into that. And I think that'll come in the next, I don't know how long, but the technology's there and the cost is already reasonable. So that's some of my thoughts.
Yep. I like it.
All right. So here, let me go through the first question. Let me get over here. I think I'm going to bring this first question up, so I'll let you go with it, and then I'll look at our other questions because we did have a couple others come in. So Rogelio, I'll read. This was in 2 segments. I'll just read this. What's the lowest cash discount we can provide to our used auto sale lots? This is since we have vehicles. This goes on to say 15K, 25K. This is something that's real to us. Large ticket, obviously, is a different world. It's, when you have a latte and you pay an extra 18 cents is very different than paying an extra $1,800. How do you communicate this? Where are our options? And how do we do that in a compliant way?
Yeah. So there's not an answer to how low can we go necessarily, Rogelio, because it's going to range depending on the type of dealership that it is. I know it's used car dealerships, but where they're located, what their customer demographic is, the cards that they typically accept. Are they mostly debit? Are they credit? Like who those customers are. Are they selling fleet vehicles, or is it just all used to consumer and they're putting down payments, $500 or $1,000 on a debit card or something like that? So there's some answers that we'd have to get before we could say, here's how low we could go. Although I never want to have that conversation, like I mentioned earlier. We should be adding a lot of value to these merchants with the solution and implementing all of this that, going as low as possible isn't benefiting anybody. It's not benefiting you and being worth your time as well, right? If you're pricing a merchant down at 2 or 2.25 on cash discount, merchants eliminating all their fees, you're making 10 or 20 basis points at most, if you're lucky. That's just not a great way to do it and a great way to set a merchant up, especially when you're not profitable, and in turn, PayProtect's not profitable, right? So I think what we have to look at is what can we do to improve the merchant's processes internally and still get them to be priced at a reasonable rate between 3% and 4%, so we can get a return on what we're doing and the program that we're implementing for them. As far as compliance, it can be challenging in the auto dealer space. A lot of these bigger dealerships anyway, not used car lots, but some of them do, have parts departments, service departments. And so very easy to implement a dual pricing type of program with those departments. But when you've got the sales side and they're willing to accept a credit card or a debit card for a down payment, tough to do dual pricing on a $1,000 down payment. You just can't. So really, to be compliant, you either have to be surcharging on down payments with these car lots, or simply, not charging a fee whenever doing a down payment with a card, because there's just no way to do a dual pricing in a compliant way. So it's a good question. I think, let's look at statements if we're ever not sure about pricing, so we can get competitive but still maximize our margins. And then, depending on how they're structured, you'll have to look at doing it a few different ways on the down payment collection, because that can be challenging.
I think this is an interesting question, Danny, here. Jeff asked, are there ISO, well, let's get that right there. Are there ISO-specific definitions to what we call cash discounting, in other words, specific brand names for it? And I think that is one of the things is we use a vocabulary that doesn't have a set list of definitions. It's why we chose to be Salcha Prime and Edge, because when we used other words, there was confusion. What would be your take on some of that when we're coming to the definitions of words like cash discounting, dual pricing?
You're going to hear me always referring to it as cash discounting, because that's what it started at, and that's just what it always will be in my brain, even though I'm not supposed to be using that term from a compliance perspective. That's where I'll tell them to take a hike. I'm just talking. So it's, cash discounting is the entire concept of it is, in my eyes, and the way that we kind of see it is implementing a program that helps merchants eliminate up to 100% of their processing fees. Right now, doing it a compliant way, here's how it's done, and we can dive into all the details like we already have. But that's what always is going to be whenever I'm talking about cash discounting, whether we're dual pricing or anything like that. But now, as the card brands, I probably do need to stop, but it's going to be tough because, like I've been talking about some of these older partners, it's tough to teach me new tricks too. So, the card brands, they're saying, you can cash discount. Just set the pricing on the merchant's shelves or the menu at the highest price, and then apply the discount for cash at the time of the transaction at the point of sale, or dual pricing, or surcharging, right? And then that last one, which is the markup on all tender types, which is just not popular. We don't see a lot of people doing it. That's an option too. But I think I don't know what some of the other ISOs. I know that there's some that have branded their program, so they're not saying cash discounts and they're not saying dual pricing, because that's all embedded with what their program is. But yeah, Edge is going to be ours, and I think it sounds a lot better than anybody else, regardless of what they tell me.
All right. So then next question is Jordan asks, is there much success in merchants sharing their percentage, meaning how much they're being charged? I think, for example, charging 3.8461 to 4% merchants, the variability between what's being charged to them, what they're charging the merchants. I don't know of anyone doing that. Danny, is there any reaction to merchants sharing that to their customers?
First of all, Jordan, it's good to see your name, man. Haven't seen or heard from you in a while. I'm hearing some of it. It's pretty rare. I am hearing more of it on larger opportunities, right? So when it's a really large merchant and you feel like you need that extra push to get them over the finish line, bringing them into the revenue side of it isn't necessarily a bad thing. These are business people. It's definitely something that you can consider. I wouldn't make it a staple of your offering by any means. And where we've always talked about in the past, right, with surcharging, the card brands used to state that the merchant's fee acceptance, whatever they're collecting from the customer, cannot exceed the fees that they're being charged, right? So we've always had this blanket communication of like merchants can't make money doing this program. Well, in fact, these are two completely different programs. And if you choose to bring a merchant in to earn revenue on their accounts or on referral accounts that they give you, they absolutely can. So yeah, I'm seeing some of it. We have one office in particular that actually offers it to almost every merchant as a kickback to them. So they actually get less taken out than what they're charging their customers. Not popular, not my best approach to it, not what I would suggest, but it's an option, right? And again, with what we have here, we just want to give our partners options to do the program the way you want to sell it. We're going to educate you and ask you to do it a certain way, and this is what the card brands want to see. But you're gonna come up with your own creative way to generate business. So if you feel like it's important to bring them in, by all means, do it. Just don't give them too much because you're going to spoil them and then ruin it for everybody.
All right. I think you'll recognize this name. Vicky asks, we still receive the gray stickers, pay with cash and save, on certain devices that are deployed, specifically those like Pay Anywhere. Is there any changes to that coming? What's the recommendation with that signage that's being sent out?
My mother always is jumping on to make a comment, but she's very smart. So yes, Mom, we're not going to change signage. The signage is still going to be going out because, the signage is great. Actually, prices reflect a card price and a cash price, pay with cash and save. It just reiterates dual pricing, right? So we're not going to see that change. I think if anything, we would eventually see the signs just go away, because the signs are what we initially, when we started the program, started sending out as a way for a merchant to notify their customers, and that's what we deemed as doing it properly. And that's where we said all these gray areas, right? Because the reality was we didn't know for sure. We couldn't have the card brands tell us what was acceptable, or they wouldn't tell us what was acceptable. But the signs reflect the program that we continue to push and educate merchants on having two prices for each item and giving a discount to your cash paying customers. So it more reiterates it, but it's not even required at this point. It doesn't have a positive or a negative unless you create your own sign that talks about adding a fee to credit cards. The sign that we're providing doesn't have a positive or a negative impact on the compliance or the setup of it. So if anything, I would see it going away, but we're not going to change it.
All right. And I see one last question here. Michael Whitlock asks, is dual pricing on the A920? I think we've been running Pay Anywhere is on the screen to show customers, not on the receipt. Is that compliant? Where do you say, Mr. Danny Schard?
Yeah, Michael. So it hasn't been on the receipt for about 5 years now. I want to say it was 2019. Nate, you might correct me, but I thought it was right before COVID.
Yep.
That we removed line items on the receipt. So anything on the receipt that is an addition to that subtotal is going to be considered or classified as a surcharge by the card brands. So these dual pricing solutions, the only thing that you're ever going to see on a receipt is going to be from a point of sale system that shows a card price and a cash price listed on that receipt there. But on any of the Valor, Deja Vu, Pay Anywhere, you brought up the A920, we've got the dual pricing built into the checkout process, and it's on the screen, so the customer has something to select, right? They're going to select that, and it's going to spit out the receipt for whatever transaction they selected and however they ran it. But you're never going to see a separate line item on any receipt that's adding a fee to the total. No.
All right. And as we close out, I left one last comment, though a couple other comments have come in. But I also, for those who are watching live, Andrew Laka beat me to it, so I'm letting him choose to it. There is a special birthday tomorrow. We're only less than 24 hours from that, Mr. Danny Schard's birthday. So you can go ahead and put it in the comments right now. Happy birthday, Danny. Send him an email. I know you'll do that. I'm sure those who are on other social media may do that. But Danny, you continue to help push us forward here, and you get to celebrate being another year older. And I'll let you share whether you want to share how old you're getting tomorrow. But happy birthday, brother.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. Turning the big 40 tomorrow. So last day in my 30s, as my coworker, Jason Lee and Jenny reminded me as I walked in the office this morning, which I didn't even think of before I came into the office today. But I'm in my 21st year in payment, so started at 19. It's been a fun ride, and crazy to think that I've probably got another 20 years left. But in any event, I'm excited to be 40. I'm looking forward to the next decade. It's going to be fun.
All right. On behalf of Danny Schard, we're in the wrong way. See, I don't even know which way to point it, but there we go. Myself, Nate Manahan. We're going to close off with another song. You can watch it for the 2 minutes, or you can sign off. You never know what some AI music may look like. It is different lyrics from the song that you introed. Again, this is if you caught us late, if you're just watching now, you can catch the replay already. Just rewind the YouTube or click the link again, and it'll start right back over there. It's already live. We're not taking it down. That link works. We'll push. Course, send an email telling you this has been out there. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you, Danny. Happy birthday, Danny. And we'll see you next time. On Thursday, we have POS Uncensored and Office Hours right here on our YouTube. We'll see you next time. Like, share, subscribe. Bye.
It's time for the Edge Report Card. Grading how it stands in the yard. From customer glee to compliance so tight. We'll break it down with all our might. Oh, where do you stand? A, B, or C, let's understand. Assessing the good, the bad, the funny. Pay pro text here with knowledge like honey. Part of presentations, a playful peek. Are you wowing merchants or feeling weak? Tips and tricks, we'll share a few. Make those deals stick it like super glue. Oh, where do you stand? A, B, or C, let's understand. Assessing the good, the bad, and the funny. Pay pro text here with knowledge like money. Report card's done, the grades are in. Now let's move forward, let the pros begin. With PayPro Tech, you're in good hands. Together we'll conquer all payment lands. Edge, the future is bright. With knowledge and laughter, we'll take flight. Assessing the good, the bad, and the funny. PayPro Tech's here with knowledge like honey. So tune in now, don't be a clown. The Edge Report Card, it's going down. Questions and answers, a lively spree. Trust PayPro Tech, more famous MVP.